buddy, I gotta go get some more crackers. What's that?
Are you a hairstylist?
Yes, I was this morning. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna have to go grab some more animal crackers for you, buddy, okay? Hold on 1 minute. Teddy, you know where they are. Just go grab a handful. There we go. He's an adult. He can find things.
For this thing to keep on going.
It's like 5 members of Congress. Here we are. Diaz Villar, Bob Menendez, and their co-hosts. People they kind of like blackmail.
And this is just because of the elite losing their homes or whatever, right? Yeah.
Under control.
I don't want to step on your toes.
Hey. Nice to see you.
Been watching your tweets and retweets.
Thank you, thank you. Good to see you.
Tigger says. Put Tigger in between the
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Doing our
Tigger in
best.
between the two big doggy.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of my colleagues that I'm honored to join in welcoming some very special guests today who will tell their stories and why what is happening on the floor of the House is an immorality, is a betrayal of the role that we have to meet the needs of the American people, will indebt future generations, and well, let's just hear their stories. Adi Barkan, campaign director for the Center for Popular Democracy, diagnosed with ALS. Thank you for being with us. I think as Rachel and Carl here? They were here last night. They've been around the Capitol advocating for a better and healthier America. Thank you, Adi. Laura Hatcher, mother of Simon. Simon is here with the party animal shirt on with his dog Tigger. Laura is, as I said, mother of 11-year-old Simon, who has been diagnosed with cerebral palsy and some other issues that Laura will discuss, and a unique genetic disorder. Simon benefits from Medicaid. And you all know Sister Simone Campbell, executive director of Network, a lobby for Catholic social justice. You'll be hearing from them and from our distinguished ranking member of the Ways and Means Committee, Richie Neal, our champion on this issue. Thank you, Richie Neal. Okay, everyone, today we stand at a decisive moment for the future of America. Today, the House will decide whether we have a government for the people or a government only for the privileged, powerful, and rich. Today, we face a GOP tax scam that raises taxes on 86 million middle-class families. 86 million middle-class families. Hands 83% of the tax cut to the wealthiest 1%. 83% of the tax cuts to the wealthiest 1%. Buries our children in debt by increasing the debt future generations will pay, and takes the first step to obliterate Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. They're already talking this morning on TV about raising the age for access to Social Security, and their assault on Medicare and Medicaid is well known. Our distinguished ranking member will address some of this. I wanted you to see the quote. Do we have the quote? But I'll tell you what it is. Every day we learn more about the disgraceful special giveaways and loopholes that Republicans have added to the GOP tax scam to enrich their donors and themselves and the president's family. The GOP is exploding the deficit to fill the pockets of the wealthiest and corporate America. But when it comes to children and working families, Republicans have the gall to say this, and I quote, the chairman of the Finance Committee, Senator Orrin Hatch. Senator Hatch says, I have a rough time wanting to spend billions and billions of dollars to help people who won't help themselves, won't lift a finger, and expect the federal government to do everything. Is that shocking?
Yes.
Shame.
Shame.
Shame. How dare they? How dare Republicans say that about hardworking Americans? In contrast, the National Conference of Catholic Bishops have said this proposal appears to be the first federal income tax modification in American history that will raise income taxes on the working poor while simultaneously providing a large tax cut to the wealthy. They go on to say, this is simply unconscionable. Unconscionable. This Republican bill is not tax reform. As I've said over and over, this is the worst bill to ever come to the floor of the House, with stiff competition for what some of the things they've tried to do. The worst bill in history because of the number of people it affects, the amount of money it sucks up to the higher income, and the impact on our future deficits. It's disgusting smash and grab. It's an all-out looting of America, the wholesale robbery of the middle class. The GO tax scam will go down as, again, one of the most scandalous acts of plutocracy in our history. American people see this tax scam for exactly what it is. Overwhelmingly, the polls are showing that the American people reject this, that they know it will not help them overwhelmingly. And yet the Republicans do not care. Today we're bringing the voices of the American people, the voices of children, families, and faith leaders, healers too, to the doorsteps of, we may need some faith healers. We'll need faith healers, won't we, Adi? To the doorstep of the House chambers. Republicans ignore these voices at their peril. In closing, let me just say this, in welcoming our guests and thanking them for the outside mobilization, which has been so important to have an impact on public opinion as far as this tax bill is concerned, and the help they gave us in defeating their repeal of the Affordable Care Act. In the course of all of this, Republicans may win this battle on the floor today, but it will be a Pyrrhic victory for them. But what they have created in our country is a coalition, a collaboration of effort of people who care about one another, who care about the future of our country. This is formidable. It's not about politics. It's not about Democrats or Republicans. It's about the people, the American people. So I thank them for their advocacy, for their effectiveness, and for overcoming what the Republicans are trying to do here as we prepare for the future. And with that, I'm very pleased to yield to Adi Barkan. Adi is, well, I told you part of his story. I want you to hear directly from him.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Leader Pelosi, and all of the members of Congress who are here, and the little lobbyists, and all of you in the press. My name, and Sister Simone, my name is Adi Barkan. I'm 33 years old. I live in Santa Barbara, California. I don't know if Representative Carbajal can hear me, but I'm proud to have him as my representative. I was a healthy man until 2016. I ran along the beautiful coast, and I hiked in the mountains, and I had a beautiful newborn son in May of 2016. And we had the most idyllic few months thanks to good paternity and maternity leave, which we're going to get for all Americans in a couple years when we return some justice to this building. And we had a joyous 3 or 4 months together. And then out of the blue, like a lightning bolt, I was diagnosed with ALS, which is a neuromuscular degenerative disorder, which is leading my whole body to become paralyzed. Every week, every month, I have less strength and I'm more disabled. So now I use a wheelchair. I can't cut food at the table. And my voice is no longer as melodious as it used to be. And worst of all, I can't pick baby Carl up and put him in my lap or carrying him around, even when he says, up. So I'm here in Congress speaking to Senator Flake and Senator Collins and pleading with Meghan McCain and Senator McCain, begging them, and with all of the House members around the country, begging them to vote against this bill. Why? This bill would do 3 terrible things to me and to our country. First of all, it would destroy the American health insurance system. It would lead to $400 billion in automatic Medicare cuts, which would be allocated by Mick Mulvaney of the OMB, who is opposed on principle to Medicare disability. Even if PAYGO is waived, this bill pulls 13 million people off of health insurance, yanking a crucial leg out of the 3-legged stool of the Affordable Care Act, sending premiums skyrocketing, making it more difficult for my wife and my colleagues and you and your friends and family to afford health insurance. When people don't have health insurance, they die. 1 out of every 1,000 people who doesn't have health insurance will die next year for lack of care. So that's the first reason why I oppose this bill, because it would do so much damage. It would deprive me, if PAYGO is not waived, of the Medicare that I need to stay alive a little bit longer and see baby Carl learn to read and teach him how to play chess and watch him go to 1st grade. The second reason why this tax scam is so atrocious is that it would take money out of the pockets of middle-class families and working-class families and poor Americans, and it would send it up to Donald Trump Jr. and the real estate developers and the hedge fund managers and the private equiteers who crashed this economy and made life so difficult for all of us to begin with. Please raise your hand if you think that the problem in America is that the richest people don't have enough money. Raise your hand, America.
No hands. No hands.
Who in their right mind thinks that is what we should be doing? Number 3, perhaps the gravest part of this bill is what it does to American democracy. The way that this bill has been considered, behind closed doors in the middle of the night with 5,000 K Street lobbyists and not a single working class person, not a single advocate for the public, not a single member of Congress from the Democratic side with access to information. No hearings where they can hear our voices. No hearings where they can hear from tax experts or medical experts. It is an embarrassment to the institution of the Congress. I don't understand why these Republicans, some of whom love this institution, tolerate this violation of basic democratic principles of transparency and accountability and voice. So I've come to Capitol Hill along with hundreds and thousands of other people, and we are calling our members of Congress and begging with them, don't ruin American democracy. It's too precious. Too many generations of people have fought and died for this democracy. Do not violate it. Do not destroy it so in order to enrich your donors. You can still stop this bill. We only need 12 members of the House or 3 members of the Senate to decide, actually, next year we can pass real tax reform in a bipartisan way. It doesn't need to rip away medical care from me and families like me. It doesn't need to raise taxes on $87 million. Democrats, I'm sure, will be happy to come to the table and negotiate a reasonable tax reform that elevates human dignity instead of promoting human misery, that embraces the greatest parts of America instead of delegating us to an afterthought. So my last point, I know I'm taking way too much time, is a plea to the American people, because maybe these Republican members of Congress aren't listening to me. I spoke to Jeff Flake directly. I spoke to Susan Collins. I spoke to Bob Corker. I don't know, maybe they just, actually, I have to tell you this story. Last night, in the basement of Rayburn, I ran into Senator Lindsey Graham. He was there speaking to a bank of cameras about his beloved friend John McCain, who, like me, is dying of a brain disease, who is struggling to live. And he was talking about John as a human being and his friend. And I rolled up to him along with Megan Anderson, who's almost paralyzed, and we said, Senator Graham, could we speak with you for a moment? And he ran away. There is video of it, NBC, all of you were there. Go find that video. He ran into the area that we couldn't go to. And that moment for me was emblematic of the entire disaster of this bill. Instead of listening to American people, they are running away from us. Lindsey Graham, the great senator from the state of South Carolina, was afraid of 2 civilians in wheelchairs who wanted to talk to him about legislation in front of his body. What am I going to do, beat him up? What is he so afraid of? What are these senators and representatives so afraid of? They're afraid of seeing us as human beings. They're afraid of recognizing our humanity. Because if they see us as humans, if they acknowledge that we are people with hopes and dreams and love and family just like them, then their legislative agenda becomes untenable. It is unacceptable for them to promote this bill if we are in fact human beings. So Lindsey Graham could not tolerate seeing my face and hearing my voice. He had to run away. And that's what the entire Republican Party is doing. It is running away from the American people because it has removed humanity from its vision of American government. So I will close with this. To the American people, this is our government. This is our democracy.
All right, Adi.
There is only one way to combat the money of K Street, and the money that is driving this train towards such an unjust and inhumane and blind piece of legislation. The only way to defeat this is if the American people rise up and we elevate our voices and we say, this is our government, this is our Congress, this is our democracy, and we reject the politics of human oppression. We reject the politics of ignoring the American people, and we insist on a government that represents us. So please, over the coming days, over the coming weeks, over the coming months, and in November of 2018, rise with me, rise with us, reclaim this Congress, reclaim this democracy, because together we can build a better country. And now it's my great honor to introduce Sister Simone, who's been fighting for these issues since long before I was born. By
that's
2
the
years.
truth. That's the truth. Thank you for your witness, for your testimony, and for your powerful voice. It is obvious that clarity is born in your struggle, and thank you for your leadership. It is gift. It is gift. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity to stand here today. I'm Sister Simone Campbell. I'm the Executive Director of Network Lobby for Catholic Social Justice. And I'm here because this morning during my prayer, I found myself weeping. Weeping for who our nation is becoming with this tax bill. Weeping for the fact that our representatives are not listening. Weeping for the fact that those who want to pass this tax bill are among the most privileged. And they do not know the story of what's happening in many places in our nation. I think of being in St. Louis and being in Middletown and the middle part of the city and seeing Miss Angela caring for the other elderly people, relying on some small government funds through the Community Development Block Grant to keep elderly people in their homes. I think of being up in Rhode Island and seeing at the homeless shelter up there, the reliance on a little bit of government funds to anchor fabulous work for the homeless in Providence. I think of the folks that I've met all over the country who have health care for the first time in their lives. And I think of the many, many workers that I've met, most recently up in the South Bronx, who work 3 jobs but still live in poverty because wages are so low. And what will this tax bill do? This tax bill will make it worse. This is why we as people of faith are saying this is not who we're called to be. Regardless of your faith, regardless of what you believe, all faiths call us to the common good, to being in this together, to not being individuals, but to be community. We care for each other. And the fear that Adi referred to drives us apart. Democracy only succeeds if we're in it together. And so I call on our Republican colleagues, please vote no on this bill. Vote no to care for our people. And vote no so that we, the people, might come together and care for each other. That is the hope of the Christmas season. That is the story of Hanukkah. That is the truth about who we are as a nation, a community together. Thank you.
Thanks, sister.
Oh, and now Representative Neal from the great state of Massachusetts, who's headed this fight. Thank you.
Thanks, sister, very much. And a special word of thanks to the nuns. You know, where I live, not only did they teach my children Sisters of St. Joseph and eventually the Christian Brothers and the Jesuits as well, but long before it was popular, they were running hospitals. They were running school systems. And their contribution to American life in terms of justice and fairness, I think in many ways is unmatched. So the simple argument this morning is the following. These children are going to be asked to foot the bill for a $2.3 trillion tax cut, all based on borrowed money. So when you hear the other side say, as they will, that this is not about the rich, they dropped the top rate from 39.7% down to 37%. That's the reality of it. The corporate rate gets cut from 35% to 21%. This is a mix of science fiction that they're proposing today and always a fallback to their favored position that tax cuts pay for themselves. This is the most regressive piece of legislation that has come out of the Ways and Means Committee in the 25 years that I've been on that committee. And when you have a chance to full view this in its ramifications today, you're going to see what happened to what could have been a really important and good moment for all of us. The last point, if you keep subtracting money through debt payments from the federal budget, then you eventually have to subtract the money from Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And our witnesses here today, as Sister noted, largely their benefit today is derived from Medicaid and a mixture of Medicare and, in some cases, Social Security disability benefits as well. So don't be fooled by what you're witnessing on that floor today. Pay great attention, but you can't get past that fact. $2.3 trillion borrowed to pay for a tax cut for people at the top. And the best title I think that Laura Hatcher has ever had is Mom. Laura?
It's definitely the best title I think anybody can have. Thank you so much, and thank you, Leader Pelosi, for inviting the little lobbyists to speak here today on behalf of children with complex medical needs. We're honored to be here with so many formidable justice warriors. So it's the holidays, and the Muppet version of A Christmas Carol has been on repeat in my house. We're all big Muppet fans, and my 11-year-old son Simon loves music, silliness, and a sweet story. But I also think that another reason that Simon loves the movie so much is because he identifies with the character of Tiny Tim. And it's easy to see the resemblance. Like Tim, Simon is sweet and kind. He loves Christmas. He even sits by the fireplace and sings sometimes. Dickens doesn't identify Tiny Tim's diagnosis, but I imagine that he might have had cerebral palsy like Simon. Simon has trouble walking, and like Tim, he wears braces to support his legs. Though I miss him being little enough to carry on my shoulders the way that Bob Cratchit carries Tim, he still loves to be hugged and held, and I hug him as often as I can, as tight as I can. Because like the Cratchits, we Hatchers don't know how long we'll have Simon with us due to a rare disease that we don't yet understand. I also find it strikingly easy to draw another big analogy between A Christmas Carol, the Muppet version included, and what's happening in our lives right now. In the story, the miserly Ebenezer Scrooge is warned that his decisions have far-reaching consequences that impact many, many lives. The same can be said of the decisions that are being made by Congress today. The choices they are making, like whether or not to pass this tax bill, have far-reaching consequences that will impact all of us. It's for this reason that my family's been coming to Capitol Hill with the little lobbyists since July. Our government seemed to turn away from protecting people with disabilities and complex medical needs, like my little boy, and began trying to take away the legal protections and programs that my son's life and my family's future depend upon. Lately, it seems like everything is under threat: accessibility, education, and our health care. It was less than 10 years ago that the passage of the Affordable Care Act made sure that people with pre-existing conditions, like my Simon, would always have the right to health care. It promised that families like mine could not be cut off by insurers or be forced into bankruptcy because our child's health care became just too expensive. It also expanded Medicaid waiver programs as well so that more kids like Simon can have access to the therapy, health care, and the inclusion programs that they need to survive and thrive in their communities. I remember the exact moment that it passed. I was in the grocery store, and I burst into tears when my husband texted me with the news. After years of worrying every single day about how we were going to be able to care for our sweet little boy in the future, it finally seemed like things were going to be okay. That living with that knowledge has been such a huge gift to families like mine. Yeah. We routinely deal with life and death situations that most families can't imagine. Knowing that we have access to health care is huge. But since this summer, there have been multiple attempts to repeal the ACA, including as a part of a tax bill. Nonpartisan experts have told us that 13 million people will lose access to health insurance if it passes. Once the ACA is weakened, protection for people with pre-existing conditions will simply become too costly to afford. Very soon, I could once again be facing a future where I don't know how I'm going to take care of my little boy. And that is a thought that I really can't bear to hold. And all of this is happening against the advice of experts, without the input of those of us who it will impact. It makes us wonder who our government is listening to, if not us. However, according to lobbying disclosure firms, the tax bill was written with the input of over 6,000 real, not little, lobbyists. Some representatives have even said publicly that their donors have told them to get it done or else. Or else. We parents of kids with complex medical needs understand consequences. We know what will happen if this tax bill passes. If our country does not turn away from the destructive and immoral path it is on. And so here we are. We are the ghosts of Christmas present. We are here to show legislators what access to affordable, quality health care and programs like Medicaid mean for our families. These programs that Congress intends to cut in order to fund tax breaks to wealthy heirs and corporations are literally the difference between our children having a future in their homes and communities or being forced back into institutions that are more reminiscent of a Dickens novel. This is wrong. And we're also here to show everyone that kids with complex medical needs and disabilities are just kids. They love to play, they love to learn, they love the Muppets. And as Americans, they deserve to have a government that protects them. Today, as a mother and as one more voice of conscience, I'm asking everyone that can hear me and that can see these children, help us make sure that Christmases to come are even more joyful than those past. God bless us, everyone. Now I'm privileged to turn the mic back over to Leader Pelosi.
Thank you very much, Laura. At this point, I would say we rest our case, how eloquent these statements are. But I do want to acknowledge some voices of the future who are here. You heard them with their parents here, with their siblings. I want to acknowledge the little lobbyist, Charlie, who's been lobbying. It's a girl. Charlie's a girl. She's been lobbying all year on the Affordable Care Act and now on this tax bill. She made this painting for me, which I have in my office as an inspiration and a constant imperative that we have to continue the fight. Not that we need a reminder. We have plenty of them, but we thank Charlie for that. As you heard Laura speak and Adi and Sister Simone, you know how urgent this is. But I will say this from just knowing the moms in my community, Pamela, my dear friend, her daughter Jacqueline, whom I pray for all the time in church. I say to my Republican colleagues, don't stand in the way of a mom, of a child with a pre-existing condition. You will never win that fight. You will never win that fight. If you want to talk, and dads too, persistent, dissatisfied, relentless, they are there for their children. We should be here for their children. And to see the care that siblings take of a child with a pre-existing condition is such a beautiful, beautiful thing to see. So we thank the little lobbyists who are here. We thank the families. We thank Adi Barkan. Was he not phenomenal? Thank you, Adi. Sister Simone and the nuns on the bus just taking this message around the country. Laura, thank you for being a relentless, persistent, dissatisfied mom. And where'd she go? Right here. And making it so clear what the consequences are of all this. We'll all be having our chance to talk on the floor. I'm so glad so many of my members, we had 2 votes during this. So if you saw members coming and going, it's because we had 2 votes on the floor. But I'm so glad that our members could hear the testimony here this morning. And with all of that, we just say to our colleagues on the Republican side, please, we pray that you do the right thing. Thank you all very much. Thank you.